More action on the grid with the Group A cars getting ready to go out for their 10-lap race, and calling all the action, Darryl Eastlake, joined by guest commentator, of course, Allan Moffat.
Thank you, Ken. Well, Allan Moffat, the man that's entertained me most of my motor racing life. I loved you in the Mustangs, I loved you in the Fords, I've loved you in everything you've ever driven, and this will be a great race.
Thank you very much, Darryl. That's very sweet of you.
We've got to get that red Coca-Cola Mustang out one day and do something with it.
Well, I still keep it under my bed, so it's ready to go. 21 years old this year. Can you believe that?
21 years ago, and that really did revolutionise touring car racing in this country. And this car is doing exactly the same thing that you did 21 years ago, this Nissan GTR.
Yes, it has made full credit to the Nissan Motor Company. They homologated a car, built 500 specials. And here we have one of them in Australia, two of them as of yesterday, to give everyone in this field a real hiding.
Well, this race is always traditionally a marvellous event because this circuit for touring cars certainly brings out the daredevil in everybody.
Well, it's the end of the season, Darryl, and people are having their last hurrah before Christmas, although this year we're looking forward to a great event at Eastern Creek, the 500-kilometre race, the Nissan 500, the inaugural kickoff for Eastern Creek in Sydney next Saturday. So this can hardly be considered the last race of the the season, but certainly one where people put their best into it. You saw Brocky was full of suds there, full of oats, I guess. And I know Dick Johnson's ready for this win. Percy's been looking forward to it. They like being in the atmosphere of the Grand Prix. Let's face it, it's not every day that you're at your national Grand Prix event, and everyone around Australia on Channel 9 looking at it. Why wouldn't you want to do well?
Just talking Eastern Creek while we're waiting the cars to get round onto the grid, Murray Walker is joining us for that race, and he really is looking forward to that.
Well, we've been trying to get Murray into a touring car for a long time, and with his zest for giving us the inside information, we'll look forward to him.
So cars making their way around now. You can see them diving around, warming up the tyres, getting everything ready. Tony Longhurst won this race in the Sierra last year. Larry Perkins the year before that in 88. Dick Johnson in 87. Alan Grice at a Commodore in 86 and Dick Johnson in 85. The past winners of this particular event, the Australian Grand Prix meeting.
Dick Johnson was very lucky one year. He was running on.
Okay, let's have a look at the grid, how they're going to line up now. Very, very important here too in Adelaide too, as the cars make their way down. Jim Richards takes pole in the Nissan GTR from Peter Brock in the Ford Sierra. John Bowe in the Ford Sierra, Dick Johnson in the other Ford Sierra from Shell. Win Percy, the winner of Bathurst in the Commodore, then Glenn Seton, Tony Longhurst, Colin Bond, Alan Jones back in 9th position. Not too happy about that. We'll talk more about that. Chris Lambden in the other Nissan, that's the privateer. And as they go down, Ray Lintott, Phil Ward in the Mercedes-Benz, an interesting car, that one. Murray Carter, the veteran, Peter Duhlman, John Faulkner in the little Corolla. They really hustle around here. John Cotter in the BMW. Laurie Nelson, he's been racing that Ford Mustang for as long as I can remember. And Gary Jones, another Corolla, and David Sala, just a youngster. This fellow only 16 years of age.
Yeah, he's got a big future ahead of him, or he's got a lot of years ahead of him. I don't know about his future at this stage, but certainly great to start so young and be in a field of champions that are sitting here today.
Ran in the Group N cars last year in a Ford Lotus Cortina, a car that you would remember so well, and he did a pretty good job too.
Why is this you're so familiar with my past, Darryl? Could we work on the future?
Perhaps I'm old. And you have been around for a long time and had some magnificent motor cars. Okay, that's the Mercedes we talked about, an interesting car. They're very competitive in Europe, but they can't run under the same regulations out here.
No, they can't, Darryl. That's a pity. They're a very fine vehicle, and they've got opportunities in front of them for the future. It might be interesting to see what happens with them next year.
Okay, watch for the start here. Brock will want to take the start off the Nissan GTR. 15 laps, 3.78 kilometres around this track. Race distance 56.7. Revs building now. This will be a magic start. The two Johnson cars into gear. Red light, wait for the green. Racing now. And watch the powerful Sierras. Oh, straight out of the blocks, the Johnson car.
Jim Richard lost it off the start.
No doubt about that. Johnson's cars 1 and 2. They've made magnificent starts. And one of the Benson Hedges car will pick that up. That's Alan Jones, I think. Brilliant starter as a Tony Longhurst will pick it up as it comes through. Brilliant start from the Benson and Hedges cars, and Brock and Richards have blown the start. Brock back in third. Brock.
Well, Jimmy Richards definitely had a stall on the grid. He didn't actually stall the engine, but he didn't get the torque down, and it cost him the start. It didn't take any opportunity for Johnson and Bowe to leap forward.
Tony Longhurst making that brilliant start in the Ford Sierra, the yellow car you can see here. But it's John Bowe out in front from Dick Johnson. Gee, they come off the line so fast, the two red cars. Plan moved that, revs down, the gap was there, and they dive through. Peter Brock back in third place, so it's Sierras 1, 2, 3 and 4 at the moment.
Well, Brock will be desperate to hang on to the slipstream here, Darryl. He won't want to let those red cars get away from him, and you can see them using up all the track. They're quite entitled to do that. They're leading the race. It's just a little bit of team tactics. Johnson taking the inside, giving him a little bit of a cushion there. John Bowe being quite polite to the boss, just held Brocky up a little bit. But here we come back into the back of the circuit.
Peter Brock hounding the two shell cars of Bowe and Johnson, the team cars, arch rivals, of course. And Win Percy doing a great job in the Commodore too. He's in fourth place. Jimmy Richards has been bumped back to sixth place at the moment, so obviously he's had a problem off the line. But look at Brock, he's stuck it right into Johnson's bumper bar now as the Sierras start to wind out. And look at Win Percy, he's hanging on well with the Commodore.
Yes, he will, and the way those cars have got slightly wider tires than the Sierras, and Bathurst proved that they were able to look after those tires. Certainly Win Percy and Allan Grice were able to look after them. Win's nicely placed here. He's still definitely within striking distance, staying almost within the slipstream. Brocky's definitely in the slipstream. I would almost say that John Bowe's holding him up a little bit at this stage, just giving Dick Johnson a bit of a run here onto the straight. Here's a replay.
Here's a replay of the start. Look at the way the two Johnson cars just dive through that gap.
Dick Johnson got one of the best starts I've ever seen him do of last number of races. That was an absolute immaculate start. It must have been just instantaneous. The green light went, and no one could say that that wasn't a fabulous start, and he deserves to be out in front at the moment.
Jimmy Richards still losing a little touch with the leaders now. Longhurst is out with a problem. That car has been parked after a marvellous start. Gee, blasted his way through from way back on the grid, but unfortunately is out. So John Bowe now really starting to build up a bit of a lead here, and Brock blasting his way into second place, but Johnson takes the line, and he should get the corner.
That's tricky at the bottom of the straight. Darryl, they definitely are pulling these cars up. They're certainly not Formula 1 speeds, but they are moving at the end of Brabham Straight, and there we have Win Percy already nudged through and nudged Brocky out of third spot. So Win's letting it let us know that he wants that Commodore up the front of the race.
And what a popular win at Bathurst too. The crowd went berserk with the Holdens back in touch again and winning at Bathurst and being pretty competitive here around this street circuit at Adelaide as well. So the big Commodore now winds out. Brock is tucked in beside him. Win Percy moves over though and takes the racing line. The Commodore, there'll be a lot of cheers around the circuit for the old Holden. It's doing pretty well.
Well, it's doing very well there, Darryl. I mean, this is a tough company he's keeping, and sitting there in a position like that already. Here comes Jim Richard just squeezing by on the inside of that tight right-hander. He's obviously back in the swing of things. May have had a slight gear selection problem off the start line, who knows, but he seems to have the Nissan wound up now, and he'll be on the tail of Win Percy before you can say boo.
Yes, Allan, there must have been a problem because he really did get bumped back as far as sixth place, but he's making a charge now, but so is Win Percy in the black and white Holden dealers Commodore as he closes up on Dick Johnson. Johnny Bowe, of course, is having a great time. He's out in front away from this scrap at the moment. Peter Brock now in behind Richards in the GTR. So it's Ford Sierra 1 and 2, then it's Holden Commodore, then it's Nissan GTR, and then back to the Sierras again. But the Holden doing a great job with Johnson. Just in front, holds him down. Let's see the flat-out speed at the end of the straight. This will be interesting.
Yes, definitely. They're not hurting on brakes. Look at Win is being very cheeky, careful. He's making a bit tight. Oh, no, he stayed there. Nice driving, sporting driving. He could have torpedoed John Bowe if he'd wanted to, but the Holden is stopping extremely well. A credit to their preparation. That's a big car carrying 1,325 kilos around, and he outbraked John Bowe at the end of the main straight. That was not a just Joe Blow average maneuver. That was terrific driving. Win Percy bringing the Commodore up.
Dick Johnson with a 238 kilometres an hour down the straight. Johnny Bowe with a 242. Win Percy 241 in the Holden. Peter Brock 239. So speed's pretty even at the moment, but a fantastic job by Win Percy. He's really wound up. He's got Johnny Bowe at the end of the straight there under brakes. It was a brilliant bit of driving. Jimmy Richards is hanging on. Now they're chasing Johnson, of course. But Win Percy's got the Commodore cranked, and here comes Richards now as he charges in up behind the red shell car. He should power past him here. He gets the inside line. Can he get the corner? No. Good shot from inside the car. That's how close it is. And there's a lot of concrete here if you make a mistake.
I think John Bowe's definitely got a problem. It was almost inconsistent that a Commodore could nail him as effectively as he did. And now here he goes. He's past John Bowe. I think we can say goodbye to John Bowe as far as being a potential leader after another lap. Yes, here comes Brocky on his tail again. Definitely trouble for the number 2 shell car.
Look at the way Jim Richards now has got past Johnny Bowe and really made the difference up. He's doing the chase now on Win Percy. And this little rocket, this Nissan rocket, unbelievable car this. Once they get it fully sorted out next year, it will be an absolutely sensation. We come back here as the Nissan switches across at the bottom of the straight now, still chasing the Commodore. Brock still chasing Johnny Bowe. Dick Johnson's out in front. He's really got past all of the scrap.
Don't discount Brock at this stage still. He could be just saying, well, I couldn't run the pace that was the opening lap, so I'm settling down. He's a great driver for picking what his tires can do, and I wouldn't discount him yet. I really wouldn't.
We've seen it before. As I've said, the touring car races here at Adelaide are always a sensation, but Dick Johnson doing it right. Well out in front. He won the race in 85, won it again in 87, and he's in the right spot to do that again in 1990. Current leader Dickie Johnson.
Well, Win Percy's coming up into a position where he's got now the Nissan right on his tail. Jim will be in the slipstream here. Oh, there's a spin.
Peter Brock. I would think that's Peter Brock, and it was too. He's lost it. He actually spun the car in much the same position in this race last year, almost there.
I remember that, and he went a little closer to the wall, if I recall correctly. But he recovered, he's back out, but I think that's hurt him in terms of being able to get back into the race.
Okay, as you watch Brock fight back, we'll take a break and we'll be back shortly. Jimmy Richards just sneaking past Win Percy a few moments ago, and really now the chase is on between the Nissan GTR of Jimmy Richards and Dick Johnson's Ford Sierra. Johnson really trying, and see the wheels coming up, and Jimmy Richards, whatever problem he had off the start, he certainly got that fixed now. This thing's absolutely flying. Allan, can he catch him?
Yes, I believe he can. 6 of 15, there's plenty of time in front of him, and he can just get himself nicely caged, keep his tires cool, run up on...
Allan, I think the main thing to look at here from other racetracks is the amount of walls. We've talked about it. You can't see through corners. It's a very difficult track to drive. On a normal racetrack, you can see through the corner, you can set yourself up, but here, it's like driving through a concrete tunnel.
Yes, and you also have to be careful of just how many G-forces you've got when you don't know where you're going. That's what makes it a little bit difficult. You saw a spin we had a minute ago with Bruggy, just a little bit over the ledge, and got that G-force a bit too tight. When you're on an open, wide circuit like Bathurst or Sandown, you have an opportunity to see where you're going. Your reflexes are a little bit more in tune with your eyeballs, but here where you're bouncing off these walls every 5 seconds, and I think we've got a Sierra on the left here. Richards under brakes at the end of the straight. Dick Johnson has had to bow to pressure, and looks like Win Percy's going to take him as well.
Johnson's got to have a problem because Win Percy's powered past. Johnson now been bumped back to third. Win Percy putting in a fantastic drive again in this Commodore, no doubt about that. But look at Jimmy Richards in the GTR. He's absolutely flown down that street, straight under brakes, and took Johnson to take the lead, and Johnson's dropped right off. Win Percy now back into second place. Got a problem. Peter Brock's got a bigger problem though.
Well, I think the heat today here, Darryl, over 30 degrees is starting to come in on these turbochargers, and they all run at 1,000 degrees centigrade, and with an ambient of 30, you can add a hell of a lot more to that under the bonnet, and here we got one of the victims.
Well, everybody on the grid, including Peter Brock, seemed to take the heat pretty lightly, but there it is. That's the end result. But look at this Nissan. What a package this is. Jimmy Richards, without question, one of the great drivers that's ever stepped into a car in Australia. He's so precise, he's so balanced, he's so cool under pressure. He's obviously had a problem at the start, but he just knows if he keeps the car right, if he keeps the brain in gear, he can get back, and that's exactly what he's done again.
Yes, ever so slowly. He crept it up and is doing a lovely job. Of course, the benefit of the four-wheel drive, each tire holding a genuine 25% of the weight of the car, and we've got a situation where you can just float this car a little bit easier than the other ones.
Well, the heat's certainly taken its toll, because John Bowe and Win Percy have blown engines, and there's Percy going in now with a Holden, and that's a shame. I mean, he wrung its neck, didn't he?
I was going to say there's an awful lot of Mustangs under that bonnet, but maybe I better not mix my metaphors here.
Well, he certainly put in a fantastic drive, but both John Bowe and Win Percy, blown engines, they're out. Jimmy Richards now out in front of the Nissan GTR, sliding the car around. You can see Dickie Johnson now. That's John Bowe still circulating, so I think what he has is a turbo problem, because the car certainly lost a lot of power. We saw the end result of Percy. He's definitely blown up. But I'd say there's a turbo problem with the car, which has lost a bit of its power.
Yes, the way Win went by, John, in the first place, it was a lackluster performance on the normal shell cars. They're up there running a little bit harder than that. It indicated that he was having a few difficulties, but he's still there, and he's holding Seton off at a good rate at the moment, although here we have Glenn Seton coming through and Alan Jones closing the field. Here's the first shot of Colin Bond and the first of the little Toyotas.
5 laps to go with Jimmy Richards and the GTR for Nissan out in front of. Don't forget that Nissan 500 at Eastern Creek next Saturday. On Live Water Sports, you'll see all the action live. We're looking forward to that. These cars, and of course some more to come, including Alan Moffat's ANZ team. You'll be there. You're looking forward to that. It's going to be a great event. But touring cars here are special to me. I think it's a great circuit for the cars. They certainly get into trouble, but it must be a handful.
Any racetrack is a handful, but when you can't see the corners as well as you'd like to, it's doubly difficult. And I think that's why a lot of fellas enjoy coming to the Grand Prix race. It is a challenge. We don't have that many street circuits that we can exercise our expertise at. But here's Jim Richards in the office, as you called it, Darryl, leading quite comfortably, I would think, with his onboard radio, telling him exactly where he is, plus the information he gets when he goes by the pits. He'll have a 3 or 4 or 5, maybe 5-second gap on second spot, and he should be able to drive that car just comfortably to the checkered flag.
So sweet revenge if it all goes to plan for Fred Gibson, because Mark Scaife, of course, completely demolished the sister car yesterday in an accident. I'm sure, unless you've been out of the country, you would have seen it. It's been replayed all over the place. It was an horrific accident. And young Mark Scaife very lucky to walk away with it, with just bad bruising and a bit shaken up. But there we go. Jimmy Richards now blasting his way into the lead. We'll take a break, come back for the closing stages. Welcome back right around Australia, wherever you're watching this lap 11 of the 15 of the Group A race. It's Richards, John Bowe, Seton, Jones down to 4th, Bond and Johnson moving back. So Dickie Johnson with a problem in his car as well. A great drive earlier, but this man has done it all. I mean, he really made a mess at the start. We assume that he's had a major problem off the start. He was just so cool and calm and collected, and he just fought his way back, picked the cars off one by one, and just blasted his way back into the lead. And Alan, this is going to be an awesome package next year, this car, when they get it fully sorted.
I was just sitting here during the commercial break thinking that, Darryl, it is rather sickening to see such awesome power and performance, and you have that combination of Fred Gibson's gifts and organization, getting the car to the line, Jimmy Richards, who could drive anything from a bathtub to a wheelbarrow, to what he's got here, technology at its height, state of the art. I mean, tremendous. This car would represent the best in the world of its type, could go anywhere, represent itself fantastically well. Now, unfortunately, the rest of us all have to try and beat it.
Well, Group A racing in Australia really is, I guess, as good as anything we see overseas.
We could take Johnson, Brock, this fellow, myself, a couple of others, and go anywhere in the world with the Team Australia. Believe me, you'd see us headline news every weekend. These cars are fast.
We talked about Jimmy Richards taking revenge, and Freddie Gibson would be really happy about that, because yesterday during qualifying, the sister car that Jim Richards is driving now was driven by Mark Scaife, and it was really a horrible moment up here in the commentary box, because it was just such a horrifying accident. Now here's young Mark Scaife, only on his second lap, gets over the ripple strips, and the car went up on its side, slammed into the tyre wall. Now watch this, just spears straight back onto the track again. Colin Bond with some great driving and Peter Brock to avoid the accident, and then we saw the flames go. Look at Bond, he really had to get out of the way and do a great job. The car then did catch fire, and Mark was telling us earlier today he had a lot of trouble getting out of the car. The doors couldn't be opened up, and actually one of the Commodore drivers had raced over and got him out, and there's the young fella there. I mean, it was a terrible accident for him to be part of. It's cost Nissan something like about $600,000 in the investment, but the smiles are back on the faces today, because that's motor racing. You crash and burn one day, but you're up taking the win the next.
Stand to win, you stand to lose. And Mark, as young as he is, and fortunately through an accident like that, he won't forget it. It's not likely to happen again. A good time to have an accident like that so early in his career, to give him just a little bit more appreciation of what's in front of him and how tough these things can bite back when they do bite.
Yeah, well, I mean, touring cars, as Jackie Stewart have been telling us all day, are so much safer than Formula One, because you've got a roll cage and you have a body built round you and a roof over the top. That's Jimmy Richards. But by gee, they're going so fast these days, Alan. When you have an accident like that, I mean, it doesn't matter how strong you've made the car, it can only withstand so much impact. And the energy of that car as it speared back onto the track, and what a brilliant bit of driving by Colin Bond and Peter Brock to not get involved.
Yes, they did, and you saw Bondi was locked up well in advance. He was split-second reaction. He had his car semi-sideways. The moment the Nissan came spearing across, Brocky was going to the left on the other side, like a couple of good footballers, to tell you the truth.
Well, Jimmy Richards now, you can see the concrete that we talk about here at Adelaide, because it really is quite an experience not being able to see through the corners, and it's a great illustration of that. And a race car driver likes to look down the road well ahead of where he's driving, Alan, doesn't he? And here you can't do that.
Now, and he wants to feel connected with his reactions. There's a lot of things happen subconsciously, a lot of things happen reflex action, you've heard the term, and it does happen. If your eyeballs can't see where you're going as well as you want, you're just a little bit tight, you're a little bit tense, and you're not letting the car flow as nicely as you want. And I suspect in Mark's case, he had a little bit of that at the speed he was going onto that straight.
Interesting to see the figures down the straight. I mean, the fastest time so far is 2:36. Jimmy Richards is only pulling 214 down the straight, so I guess he must be making it up right through the corners. That fantastic steering on this car. Here's the figures for you now. Jimmy Richards at 2:17 that lap, a bit quicker. Johnny Bowe at 2:30. Glenn Seton at 2:22. Alan Jones at 2:25, along with Colin Bond. So he's certainly making a lot of it up through the tricky bits of the circuit.
Handling and dialing the car in, Darryl. It's a very good example of horsepower alone is not the total criteria in making a successful race car. That's the elapsed time syndrome. The drag racers understand it clearly. Your elapsed time over any given section versus your top speed is not necessarily the be end and the end all, and Jim Richards is proving that here today.
He can really balance a car, this man, can't he? I mean, he can really set up a car and balance it properly, and he's so easy on a car.
That's another aspect. He's got tremendous finesse. He's been driving for many years. He hasn't won 3 Australian Touring Car Champions by not having finesse, and you can see it, the flow. Admittedly, he doesn't have anybody exactly harassing him on his back bumper bar at the moment, but he is flowing the car and doing a very nice job for himself and for his company, Nissan.
So Jimmy Richards now heading out, and that second we can see there, which is Johnny Bowe, of course, and he's put in a pretty good drive.
Tony Longhurst seems to come out of the bushes somewhere. I don't know where from.
Yeah, because, I mean, that car dropped right back. He was way, way back. In fact, almost looked like it was pulling off the circuit. So he really has put in a super drive to fight his way back. Whatever problem he had, certainly got it cured and put the boot right into it.
Well, Tony knows what to do when he's got something to do it with. I don't imagine that anything that was super serious. he's given it a go. He's overcome the problem. Maybe he was just lying possum. I don't believe that. It's not his style.
Well, you can look at the difference between the gap there. They came onto the straight. He was only a car length in front, and he certainly pulled a big distance out there on that Shell Sierra. He's just blown it away, and now Bowe comes up a little bit closer. But Longhurst, whatever problem he had, he certainly cleared the trumpets, and he's back in business there. But a fine drive from Jimmy Richards. Peter Brock blowing his card, win Percy with a marvellous drive in the Commodore, proving that they have been competitive in the latter part of the season, but unfortunately blew the motor on that and had to park it. It's always eventful here, and today's been no different.
Well, it's one key to this business, Darryl. You got to finish to win, and it's great to be fast and furious, but the whole idea is to put 15 laps together that will get you that victory, and I think we have to hand it the credit where it's due. Preparation and development, taking it cool and looking after what you have to is in front at the moment.
Well, these guys get another turn to go around the Adelaide Raceway tomorrow in front of this enormously big crowd, so it's not all over yet for the tourers. There'll be some late night, midnight oil burnt tonight. Cars put back together. There's another spin this time.
Longhurst, he's undone it. Got himself too carried away.
Unbelievably, fought his way back through the pack, and then has lost it on the very last lap. So he's lost all of that advantage so hard that he fought back through the pack. But it's Jimmy Richards, big crowd here, cheering Jimmy Richards on. He's very popular. He always grants interviews. He plays the media game. He does the corporate thing, and by gee, he can drive a hell of a race car too.
He's highly respected by his colleagues, and that's the best compliment you can give him.
Well, I think he's one of the nicest men you can come across in any sport, Jimmy Richards, and I mean, nothing ever seems to fluster him. If he has a bad day, he's always got a smile on his face at the end of it and says, well, I'll be back tomorrow.
Well, a sign of a champion, Darryl.
So congratulations to the Nissan team, and particularly to Fred Gibson and young Mark Scaife, because they'd be smiling about that. Jim Richards in the Nissan first, Johnny Bowe in their Sierra, the Tasmania was second, Glenn Seton with a fine drive too. We didn't see a lot of Glenn Seton during the race, but because of all the drama, he's finished in third place, so he'd be pretty happy with that.
He prepares a fine car, and he works hard himself personally, develops the engines himself in conjunction with his father, and he's a nuts and bolts driver. He gets right down to the basics and works hard for what he gets.
Well, that was 15 laps around this Adelaide street course today. There's 10 laps to come tomorrow. It'll be just as fast and just as furious. But by gee, I think there'll be a lot of plotting going on to see how they can dethrone this Nissan. It's just such a power package. Fantastic. I mean, Richards is such a great driver, but the more they race this car, the better it becomes.
Do you mind if I just take a powder now, mate? If I hear this too much longer, I'm going to go home and slash my wrists. I don't know why I need to bother getting up next year. No, that isn't the case. Everybody will fight the Nissan, and this is a flowing, open track. When we say open, in as much as it's got some speed, so it was natural that he would be able to unfold the thing. But credit where it's due. The other people aren't working hard enough.
I'm sure the Ford men will do their job tonight, and so will the Commodore men. Right, that's it now from the tourers. We'll go back to Ken and Jackie in the studio.
Thank you, Darryl. Thank you, Allan. That was a nice drive by Jim Richards. Unflustered, uncomplicated, kept it very simple.
Absolutely. Paced himself very well, a sign of a champion. The car went well, obviously well prepared. It's good to see the big manufacturers in so strongly, and of course Japan is featuring very, very heavily now when you consider that Honda supply the engines for the McLaren. Now Nissan are involved, Toyota's involved, as well as Ford and Holden, etc. BMW are involved. It's a big deal.